Everyone, this is Jeremy Nathan here with Jay in Training. Nice to see you all on here. This is the Microsoft Excel, data analysis, DAX, M language, XLOOKUP. We'll be going over a lot of things. You can post questions you have in chat. So kind of get started up here. So have any of you can post in the chat what city and state you're from. I'm here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I have another screen, that's why I'm looking over there. And I'm sharing my screen here, so you see all the other classes that I instruct. It's mostly computer classes like Office 365. You can also send me an email and I'll send you this PDF. Been doing instruction for a few years now. So teach Adobe Pro class, beginning Microsoft Excel. Right now our special is we're doing 4-hour online classes in these computer classes where you can send an unlimited number of people from your company for $1,000 for the whole session. And that includes a video after this. These classes all come with a PDF workbook. I also teach on site when things open back up. So what I'll be teaching too is some from this pivot table class here. Just cover a few pivot table, pivot chart things today. We'll cover some from the advanced formula class here, and we'll cover some from this data analysis class. This is an 8-hour class here. Has anyone used Power Query in Excel? Let me go over to the chat to check it out. Has anyone used Power Query in Excel yet? Okay. All right. Well, I'll show you how that works. First, let me show you. Here's what we're going to cover today, and here's Eventbrite. I'll post in my contact information in the chat here. Let me put that in here so you can see. Okay. So a few of you have used Power Query, some haven't. So here's my Eventbrite page. You can see past events on here. That should be on the information that's in the contact info here. The past classes that I've taught, some free ones or some paid ones. But also mostly what I do is just for each company at a time, custom classes. And also will teach your company using your own data for your people. And here's my website, so you can check it out when you have time. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join me today, learning these skills. First thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you some shortcuts, but what we're going to cover first is XLOOKUP. Has anyone used XLOOKUP before? So what XLOOKUP does, I'm sure a lot of you have used VLOOKUP. What XLOOKUP does is it'll look horizontally or vertically. So here's an example, a real world example here. We have some tax rates. This is 2020 tax rates for income tax with a different percent and what the max income is to pay that percent. So someone making up to $9,875 a year pays 10%. Someone making up to $518,400 pays 35%. And then over that is 37%. So just a simple XLOOKUP here. What this part does is, let me show you one example from that's just going across without looking, without doing going to the next lowest one, like here, like the 35,000 isn't on here. Let me show you just a simple one. Like let's say I have these people's names here, and I want to see what department they work in. Here's how you'd write that formula, and I'll zoom in so you can see here. So you do equals XLOOKUP, open parenthesis, and I'll copy and paste this into the chat. So you all don't need a file from me. You could type in these names here in the A column, names, and we have names in the L column, and then a department in the K column here. So it's XLOOKUP, and we look at the lookup value, which is this person here. So the first thing is usually always the lookup value, what you're looking up. And then next is lookup array. When you see array, that means multiple cells, the whole range. So I select this range, and we need to press F4 press F4 to lock in that range, and then a comma. And the return array is what we want to return. So lookup goes with lookup. Okay, the name goes with name. And return array means what do we want to return. And we'll say the department. We'll say, just press enter. So Jim works in HR. If I paste this down, it's Jane, she's a VP. Sarah, sales. And then NA means that Rachel is not on the list. So let me put this into chat. Okay. So you all can try this with me if you want. And now let's say we don't want to see the pound NA if there's an error. So what we do is just after this do comma, and you see each part says what's next if not found. And here we'll say not found, enter, and double click. There's not found. So that's all the parts of XLOOKUP. And I'll paste into chat what that means here. I put this into Notepad++. So here's what lookup, here's the syntax of XLOOKUP. It's equals XLOOKUP, and then you have your lookup, what you're looking up, matching that with the lookup array and what you want to return. And next is what happens if it's not found. And next is match mode, and next is search mode. So match would be an exact match, or greater than, or less than a match. And then next we have search mode. So this next one, so I'm going to go pretty quick. If you have questions, let me look in the chat, see if you have any questions here. Can you all see my screen okay here?
Add this device and keep your other device and leaving transfer to this device.
Yeah, can you see my screen all right?
Yes. Chris, you're on, Chris.
Yes.
It's okay. Okay, so most of you can see my screen. If you can't, you could just end the session and join back. Just leave and come back to this meeting. Okay, so that's XLOOKUP, pretty easy. Okay, here is not found. Like if you put a 0, then 0 would be if it's not found. So 1 means exact or next larger. In a search mode of 1 means the first item to the last. And that's where I want to show you with the tax rate.
Now this kind of looks like I'm in there, but I can't hear it. Can I hear it now?
You got the volume turned up? You can just message on the chat if you all have any questions or if you can't hear. But like I said, this will be recorded. I'll put this on YouTube, and so I'll share this recording with you all. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get the next highest income bracket. So basically, if someone's making $45,000, they pay 22%. If someone's making $100,000, they're paying 24% tax. So here's how we do that. Now, let me just show you this XLOOKUP here. If we did this without the other extra parts, what that would look like. See, it shows error. So here's an error because it couldn't find the 35,000. What I did, I said, look up the 35,000, look in all these income, all the numbers, this part, return the tax rate, and it says it couldn't find it because it's not on there. but that's why we have to do that 0, 1, 1. So if not found, just do 0, 1. So 1 would be exact match or next larger item. -1 is exact match or next smaller item. 2 would be a wild character match. Next, so that's the one. Next, I'll say search first to last with a 1. -1 would be last to first. So I'll say 1, press enter, and 35,000. They're paying $35,000 of your income's paying 12% tax rate. Let me put this into the chat. Any questions? You all can just let me know if you have any questions with this. You can put in the chat too. Does this look like this is something that could help you all out with shipping rates or commission rates or bonuses? What do you think? So if y'all don't mind, if you mute yourself, please. I can say that. Thank you. Okay, any questions on the XLOOKUP? Okay, some people say, yeah, for searching ranges. Okay, great. Thanks. Let's move on to the next one because I want to show you some more M language, and I'll try to end up a little bit early, and I'll stop the recording for questions towards the end, okay? You can also search on different pages because, you know, this may be on different pages here. Like here would be these different departments. So here I have the departments on another page. Let's say I want to see what division they're in. I'll just do this on another division. I'll say equal XLOOKUP, lookup value, their name, and look where on this other page, this column, like this, F4 to lock that in, comma, and then I say what I want to show, and that's the division, F4 to lock that in, enter, and right there. So Sarah North, I already did this. I did the formula from another, the formula was over here. I just did it again. So Sarah works in the north and Sarah north. Okay, so you can do this from different pages, different Excel files, different tabs, anything like that, okay? Okay, next I want to show you is the switch example with ifs, all right? So let me show you here is what we have. So here's the formula. We have, this is called ifs, IFS. You've probably seen before, are any of you familiar with if statements? Equals if. Has anyone, do you all use those if statements? Okay. So if you're familiar with if, here's how if works. Let me do if real quick. So we'll say if it's greater or if it's less than 500, it's poor, equals it, or low performance. So B2 less than 500, I'll say low. So what that means is that's a value of true. If not, I'll say it's acceptable. So an if statement does logical test, value of true, value of false. This will say evaluate to true. Actually, it won't evaluate to true because it's exactly 500. So I have to say less than or equal to 500. Now it'll say low. Okay. So right there. And these other are acceptable. So with an if, there's a value of true, which is low, and a value of false, which is acceptable. Now, what an ifs does is, let me show you. Here's what an ifs does. It does a logical test, true. So that's the first logical test, then true. second logical test, then true, third logical test, and then the value on that third logical test, if it's true. It just keeps going like that. Logical test, true. And then at the end is everything else. Okay, so let me show you how that works. So we'll say equals ifs, open parenthesis. Let me go ahead and post this into the chat if you all can type while I'm doing this. It'll be that same formula. So I'll say equals ifs, open parenthesis. And I'll say, so with the ifs, when you're talking numbers, you always go from the bottom up, like less than 100, then less than 200. For each level, you say less than the next level up. And I'll show you how that works. So this will say less than 500. Here, I'll say low. I'll say the same thing. Comma. Next would be B2. We'll say less than 800. Is that what I had? Less than 800. That is acceptable. And everything else is excellent. Let me see which. I got to do B, or it's greater than. So B2 greater than or equal to 800, and comma. So when you see an error like that where it says too few arguments, that means that you need another argument, which is the logical test part 3. Okay, let me see. Oh, here we go. Wrong spot. There we go. See if this works. And that's acceptable. So here where it says, let me see what I had in the chat. So in here where you have from the low, it should say, let me do this. There we go. Okay, now we have, here it said, okay, excellent. Here I did equal to, that way it would show if it's less than or equal to 500. So you got to have more than 500. So here, and then in between I said if it's less than 800, acceptable. If it's greater than 800, excellent. Okay, so here's other, basically does the same thing for okay, excellent. I'll put that in the chat here. And someone asked how many logical tests can be used in a cell. I think it's up to 50. So it's a lot. It's about as many as you can type. So you can keep going those over and over. But another thing that may be easier would be a switch. And I'll show you that next, where you can do up to 50 different if statements, basically. And so someone said, yes, this is similar to a nested if. Right, similar to a nested if statement. So instead of having to do if and then another if, so the old way would be if like this. What was that? B2. I'll say less than, equal to 500. Poor performance. And next I'd have to say if B2 greater than, or excuse me, less than, equal to 800, then that's like okay. The next would be if, and then the so on and so on. This I may have missed. Probably need to do. There we go. Okay, that'd be the old way of doing it. That's a nested if, like someone asked. Great question. So it's just a little easier to write with the ifs, where you just keep writing a logical test, value of true, logical test, value of true, logical test, value of true, over and over. And then if you have an error, just make sure you have quotes around the text. Numbers don't get quotes. And the logicals always have less than or equal to, or less than equal to. Also, good one is not equal to. So that's not equal to. I'll paste that into chat. And there's no minimum. I think you could say less than negative 1,000. So that's a good question. Like if I said negative 500, less than negative 500, and if I said negative 1,000, see that's poor performance. So I put in here negative. You put a negative number, less than negative 5. Well, that's way less than. That'd be poor. But if I had like 1, it'll say acceptable. Okay, great question there. Okay, any other questions? You can ask through the audio too, if you have any questions on these. Now, let me show you what switch does. Go to the next one. So what switch does, you have an expression and then a value and then a result. Like basically here, we have the B2. If it's 500, then low. So let me put that in here. So B2, 500 is low, 600 acceptable. Now, but the switch, the one thing of this, this is more for exact amounts, like days of the week, shift, that kind of thing. So let me show you. And then at the end, it would be everything else, or the default. So switch just says this column, if it's so 500 low, 600 acceptable, 700. Let me put in here better. And everything else excellent. Okay. So let me show you how that works. I'll go over to the right. So I'm still do B2 here. And I'll post this into the chat also. It says equals switch. We're saying B2. If that's 500, we'll say low, 600. Well, I'm just typing straight across. Next we'll say 700. So you could have as many in here as you want. This wouldn't work as good as the ifs, because this is more for exact values. So 700 would be better. Everything else will be, we'll say, so see how I went to default, default or value. So it's always value or default or value. So everything else I'll say excellent. Okay. So low, that one was 500. Let me post this into chat so you have that. But I'll show you a better case of doing this. I just want to show you this example where we basically get the same results. See here, we said 700 exactly is better right there. So we have, let me go to the first one. So we have B2, if it's 500 low, 600 acceptable, 700 better, everything else excellent. Okay.
It's hitting me the wrong way.
Do y'all have a question? Yeah. Just let me know. Okay. Now what I'm going to show you is how to do a day a week. Okay. Here we have the dates. And the formula is a weekday. So that's just equals weekday with this number, weekday of that cell. That's a 3. So that's every day. Okay, can you all hear me? Go ahead and, I'm sure you all can use this formula. Go ahead and post in the chat. Could you all use this formula where it shows what day of the week it is? Here, I'll go ahead and I'll just paste this back in. I pasted that in instead of typing this because I don't want to take the time to type this. Here we just have switch with that. Well, here I actually did the weekday formula inside of here. I could have said, here I could have just changed this to B3 also, or B2. Well, we had to get the number here. Let me just leave it like that. So there we go. That's the weekday. Switch the weekday if it's a 1 Sunday, 2 Monday, 3 Tuesday, so on and so on to Saturday. And if it's something else, it'll say no match. So if I put in here something like part number, it'll say no match, or well, it says value, because I guess there's no weekday. So it gave us an error. Okay, any question on this formula? Okay, so here's, see a few of you saying you could use this to see what day of the week it is from the weekday. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Next is the M formula language in Excel. So what that is that's in Power Query, and I'm going to show you some DAX formulas that go along with that. I don't know if I have time to get into the DAX formulas. I want to show you pivot table, and I want to show you some M formula language. But I will show you a few DAX formulas here. So what I'm going to do, Control N for new page. So brand new file, Control N. And I wanted to get to the Power Query editor. So that's under here, under data, and the data model here, the Power Pivot window. But let me show you how to bring up the Power Pivot window. I'm on the data model. I'm going to just make a blank query. So get data, and from other sources, blank query. So again, here's what I clicked on, is this, get data. If you're taking notes, you can't get data, other sources, blank query. Okay, and if you all don't have this under your data, you could be using an older version of Excel. What I'm using is Excel 365. And so if you're using Excel 365, this should be in there automatically. And let me show you how to do this, the blank query here. When you click on Advanced Editor, that's Advanced Editor. A blank query is just saying this. Every M query language always says let with source equal to blank in source. Okay, if I say done here, you don't see anything. It's a blank query. Let me make this bigger. It's called the Power Query Editor. So if I go in here and if I say let source equal to 5 in source, this is basically a variable. Our variable is called source. It's equal to 5. When I say in, that means what is going to be the output. And we will see a 5 here. So I'll say done. And now you see a 5 right over there. Okay, 5. So we can make any other, there's a lot of variables we can do. This is going to get you understand how to use the M language. And I'll show you here in a second how to bring in a Power Query that will help you. So here I'll say let A equals, we'll say 5, B equals 7, and C equals A plus B. So this, commas around these, like this. I'll post this in a chat. Someone put in the chat, what would be the answer to this? What would this answer show here? So this is similar to, okay, great, 12, exactly. Right, C is equal to 12. So just math here. A is 5, B is 7, and then C is A plus B. And you always say NC. So you always say in the last thing that you wrote. So I'll say done, and it says 12. I'll zoom in here so you can see 12. Okay, great answer, exactly. So that's just some of the query language. Let me show you how to import or to bring in another query from here. I'll just see. So with Power BI, you can just go back into your file. Here you have to close this. Here I'll say close and load to. I'll say close and load to ... and I'll say add to the data model and only create a connection here. I'll say okay. That just brings the query up on the right. So I'm going to bring in another file. So get data from file from workbook. Like this sale, I was in here before on the desktop, sales 2018, bring in that Excel file. I'll click here, click transform data. So I selected sheet 1, click transform data. Sheet 1 had the data in here. Now you see the data, and here's what it looks like. This is the file. ID, name, year, sales. Okay, these are the columns I have in that file. Just 4 rows with the title. Okay. Now, let's say I want to make sales into a dollar amount. So I'll do, call this currency. And I'll say add a new step. So that adds a new step. If I look at advanced editor, we can see what's going on. Zoom in a little bit here. So what's going on, you have a let and end statement always. So the let is and we have the source. Like I said, always starts with the source. Source equal to excel.workbook. And with Excel workbook, it's open parenthesis file.contents with open parenthesis and the name of your file path and quotes. And null and true are just the defaults to bring in the table. Sheet 1, we're just saying that's, so the next step is sheet 1 sheet, and that calls back the source. So sim language is just you always refer to the step above. That's why source is blue. It's talking about a step above source. Sheet 1, it's an item is a sheet 1 or table. Kind is a sheet. We're bringing in the data. Next, we promote headers, and in this line, you always have this sheet 1 sheet here, which is right there, sheet 1 sheet. We promoted the headers. Next, we have the automatic types, and next we change sales to currency. Okay, if I change sales to text, I could just type in here like this. Type text. Just like above, say done, and that's text ABC. But let me change that back to dollar amount. Add new step. So that's the same thing. Okay. See how you can edit this. Any questions so far? So someone says you don't see the advantage to query instead of just writing the C equals A plus B as a formula in the sheet. Well, that's a great question. You could just say in the sheet C equals, you could just make a formula in Excel, but what I'm teaching you today is the beginning of variables. So that's how you start learning variables. A equals 5, B equals 7, C equals A plus B. So that's called variables. So that's why I'm just showing you the simple variables. When you start learning that, then you can start learning this M language. So that's a great question. So I'm going to copy this. I just copy this text. I'll say done. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to copy a whole query. I'll just do a new blank query. So in here I'll have load to ... I'll say add a data model, only create a connection, and get data. Other sources, blank query. I'll click on, there's nothing in here. I'll click Advanced Editor, select this, Control V to paste it. Here I change that 2018 to a 19 to get in the other data. Everything else I can say the same. Click Done. And here we go, 2019 spreadsheet. So you see how easy that is? You can just, let me see here, sheet 1. So sheet 1, I'll call this 2018, table 2018. This one will be table 2019. There's 2019. This one was 2018 data. Any questions with that? So that's how you start using the M language. Now, do any of you use Power BI? Have any of you used Power BI at all? Post that in the chat. Okay, so say no. Okay, some people have, maybe some of you haven't used Power BI, some have. Let me show you can copy and paste these queries into Power BI and back and forth. I'll right click. I'll copy that whole, actually I'll copy this advanced editor information. Easier, copy this. I'll close this. Now I'm in Power BI just to show you blank query. Right here, advanced editor. Paste this. And it says no syntax errors. It's going to bring in 2019 data. Click done. And there's 2019 data. So you can go back and forth. That's what's cool about the M language. You can copy from Excel, bring it to Power BI, from Power BI query into Excel. So for some of you who use Power BI, what do you think? Can this be helpful? And someone asked, what is it used for? Okay, great question. Power BI is just like Excel for data analysis, but there's just more advanced charts here, in here, which is more advanced. Here, let me load the data into here. So there's more advanced charts in Power BI than Excel, but you can do the same kind of data analysis, which is advanced data analysis here. So you can make charts, graphs, and here you can make a gauge of how far have you reached a goal. You can put in a minimum and maximum value, so you can bring those in. There's advanced charts, ArcGIS maps, global maps, maps for for sales maps here. So there's all kinds of things you can do with this. And I teach classes in this, advanced Power BI also. But here we'll get back into Excel here. I just want to show you that if you all are using 365, you probably have Power BI available to you. Don't quote me on that. You know, if your company hasn't given you Power BI, but in 365, it comes with a lot of these apps. Okay, so any questions on some of this M language here? You could post that in the chat. Let me know. When I teach more advanced classes on this, this is just, here's just a, let me go back to, here's Excel. It looks the same. Here's just the advanced editor, where more advanced things you use variables. You can use functions that you put in parameters, like date parameters or number parameters or a table as a parameter. Okay. So someone says, looks like a replacement for access, getting the data into table. Yeah, I mean, this data is in tables with the columns and the rows. But let me show you another thing is with some DAX. I'll show you kind of a real way to use the variables here. I have this other spreadsheet, and here's a table. We have sales tax. Let me see. Let me close this. Let's say keep. Okay. There's that table here. The other tables I brought into. Excuse me. These other tables I brought just into create a connection only. This table 2019, it's here in our spreadsheet, table 2019. Okay, let me show you this, which is sales tax rates based on zip codes. I just have a small table here with the zip code and the sales tax percentage. And I'm going to show you I'll show you behind the scenes in the data model. So here's the data model. What I did is I imported, we have all the other tables. What I did, I imported the sales tax, that's a sales tax table. I just brought that in, okay? What I mean by bringing it in, the get data, Excel, sales tax. And right there, there's the two columns, zip code and sales tax rate. Now, if I show you diagram view, what I did was I connected that zip code in the sales tax column to the zip code in the sales spreadsheet, sales table, right here. One-to-many relationship. We have one, because I just want to bring in each unique zip code with that sales tax rate. So I had to remove duplicates in that table to do a one-to-many relationship. Well, if some of this sounds new to you all, I'm just showing you, this is more advanced things that I instruct. This is just the beginning, just basically an overview of these things. I know this may be kind of confusing. I go into more detail in the more advanced classes, in the longer classes. Okay, so that's how we connected those. And the reason I connected those was so I could do a formula here to bring it. Now here's my sales. In the sales, I have products, date, zip code, units. Does this look familiar to you all? How you have the different columns here. And over here, I brought in, here's the tax rate. Right there's the tax rate. Well, here it's blank because I just had a small zip code table. Let me show you what that looks like by just doing a filter. This in. Okay, so 60093, that's 8.5%. Now, if I show you that, scroll down right here, well, it rounded up to 9%, really 8.5% here. Okay, and let me go back to that. Let me find that file. So right here, this file, here's the data manager, the Power Pivot editor. So there we go. This is called, so I know this is called Power Pivot for Excel. There's three parts of Excel. I showed you the M language, which was the query to bring in the files. And then this is the Power Pivot data model in Excel. And then you have Excel. So that's the three parts of Excel. There's regular Excel, Power Query to bring in the queries to tell it what steps to do. And then you have the data model where all the data is from all those tables. That's the three different parts going on here. So maybe a lot to kind of think of. But like I said, I go into more detail and I explain it a little more in the full classes. So anyway, there's that 8.5%. It didn't round it. That's 8.5 for this zip code. Now, here's how I brought in that that tax rate from that tax table was using this formula. And I'll post this in the chat. So someone says, I'm connecting tables where I'm allowing the primary keys to match data from different tables. Right. The primary key or the unique key would be the unique zip codes to this mini where you have this same zip code over and over. It's all 8.5%. So it's kind of similar to access. Okay, here's the formula I put in here. Is just did a lookup of, let me go to this. So lookup, the result column is that sales tax rate. Let me go ahead and I'll just type this in again. Pretty easy. So lookup value. This is called DAX here. Microsoft Excel DAX means data analysis expressions for Excel. So here I have type in the whole thing again. Equals lookup value open parenthesis. Next is sales tax. So I want the sales tax rate, and then that's my result column. That's what I want to see as a result. If I say comma, it says search where. Okay, search based off this sales table, the zip. So it's sales. Just click here for sales zip, comma, and by searching, make sure I have the right order. We'll look here. Okay, I got to do sales, the zip code first, and then sales zip. So we got to do the result here, kind of like a lookup here. So sales tax rate based on this sales tax zip code, and look in this zip code. Right, this one's zip code. Let me see if that's the same as what I put in the chat here. That worked. So we want to see the sales tax rate from that other sales tax table by looking in sales tax table zip code, matching that with this zip code. Just press enter, and there it is. Okay, now you can do variables here in DAX. So what this is, that was a column formula. Down below is a DAX. This is called measures in the bottom. That's a column formula I showed you. At the bottom are measures. So like I could say all sales. So I'm typing this up here. All sales equal to the sum, open parenthesis, of this sales. And this will say revenue. So the name of the table is just the name of the table, sales. At the bottom it shows sales. Revenues in brackets, that's the name of the column. When I press enter, it says already, let me do all sales too. That one already existed. So here we go. There's all sales right here. It's showing a filter though. Let me clear the filter. Here's all the sales. Turn that into a dollar amount. And there we go, $1.2 billion. Okay, so that is a DAX formula. That's called a DAX measure. I'll put this into the chat. And with these measures, you can also define a variable. So I'll call this variable example. Variable example here equal to. So I did shift enter to go down like this, and here if you are on mute, go ahead and mute yourself, please. Here I'll say I'll do the ABC again. Var A equal to 5. Var B equal to 7. Var C equal to A plus B. And I want to return. So this, instead of that let and in, this is just a return. Here I'll say return C. What do y'all think this is going to give us here? You put into the chat. Maybe I should use different numbers to get a different answer. Okay, great, 12, exactly. Let me make that column wider so you can see 12. Any question with that? So that's called using variables in the data model. So that's a measure. The measure is called variable example. You got the colon equal to, var A is 5, var B is 7, var C is A plus B, and return C. Okay, now another example where we had, let me bring in an example of by the zip code. Let me bring this up in here where we have the variables. Here we have, I evaluated the variables here. Let me copy this. So I'll say that 60093, I want to add up the sales. So let me paste this into here. I will call this, give it a name. The name is the name of the measure. I'll say this is zip example. So our variable is selected. It's called selected zip codes. That's equal to filter all the zip codes by 60093. Evaluate the table by sales, by selected zip codes, and then calculate those values. So here, let me remove some of these little quotes here. See, looks like I may have an error on here. Let me just leave this one here. I'll just copy that to see what I did wrong here. Let me see if I had another, example here, maybe a simpler example. Oh, here we go. This one's a lot easier. Just a simple variable here. Okay, so this example is just saying the variable is select the zip codes equal to filter this and return the zip codes. Okay, call it example 4. There we go. So this one's doing just looking for filtering out that zip code. So this is a variable here. This is called a variable inside of a measure. Okay. And so real quick, let me show you some pivot tables, I'll give you some pivot table shortcuts here. Go here, bring this up. So this is part of the data analysis and dashboard class. In that full class, I teach you how to make this dashboard where you can see, like, for example, South sales by someone's name, like let's say Liam. So there's Liam South sales where they all add up to $19,927.24. This is based on this data Right here, I'm going to show you how to do a pivot table shortcut, a shortcut to make a pivot table. I'll put this into chat, Alt and V. So you just do one key at a time, Alt, then N, then V. Watch, I'll do that right now. So just anywhere in the data, click in the data, then Alt, N, V. And right there, it brings up Create Pivot Table. That's just one key at a time, Alt, N, V. I'll say Existing Worksheet. Let me click here for this existing worksheet. I'll say OK. And now, when you add that to the data model, I'll show you that. Just add it to data model. That puts it into the data model of Excel. That's that Power Pivot is what it's called. Data model is Power Pivot. That's where we were doing those DAX measures. So I'll say OK. Here's the blank pivot table. I can say let's look at region. Let's look at sales. And to format that sales, I go down here, the drop down for sales, value field settings. And let's see, right here, number format, click on number format, click on currency, click OK, OK. And there's our dollar amounts in the pivot table. To make a pivot chart, that's Alt F1. That's called Alt F1. I know North is kind of in the middle here. These are in alphabetical order. So here, maybe change the order to make it look better. So that's anyway, it's Alt F1. That when you hold down, that's Alt plus F1 makes a chart from selected data. Maybe this isn't the prettiest chart. Change the chart type real quick. There, it looks a little better. Okay, so any questions with that? That's how to make a pivot table and pivot chart. Now if I look at that data model, it's under data, data model, that's a Power Pivot window. And here's where I could do a formula, a DAX formula, a DAX measure based on all these sales, which would be total sales equal to sum, open parenthesis, and here it's called range. The table's called range here. You can change that. And the column is sales. That gives us the total here. And change it to a dollar amount. $1.8 million, $1,084,000. If I go back to Excel to look at that, at the bottom, that's the $1,084,000. Okay, any questions on what I went over here? On the M language, on the DAX formulas. There's a lot more DAX formulas I instruct in the whole class. So I showed you the sum formula there. So any questions? Let me check out the chat. What I'll do, I'll stop recording here, so then you can ask questions.